Let's talk a little bit about helping clients examine their religious beliefs. Here are some questions. I'm not going to read all of these. I'm just going to let you take all of these questions in. I'll just pick out a few to highlight. Some of these I think are kind of some existential questions, really can be therapeutic and can help you and the client explore the place that religion takes and has in their life. And you can, religion and spirituality and or whichever is appropriate for that particular client. Are my religious beliefs or spirituality helping me become more of the person I would like to become? So I think if you are working with clients that are wondering, where should I go in life? How do I get unstuck? Or, I feel like there's something missing in my life. These can be some really good questions that can be very helpful to help uncover the connection between religion and spirituality in the client's life. Does my religion or spirituality encourage me to put my beliefs into action? So ways to help clients examine their religious beliefs. Here we go. Let's go to the case study next. And this client's name is Bill. Okay, so Bill told me, so me is the therapist. Bill told me that his religion was important to him. I began listening closely to Bill as to how I might be able to integrate his faith into treatment. Thoughts such as, I might be able to incorporate scripture into the cognitive restructuring process, and maybe I could get him connected with one of the prison ministries for support, raced through my mind. He went on to tell me that he not only was his belief system important to him, but that it informed his political views, and that it was the lens through which I see the world. Then Bill told me that he was an Odenist. So this is what Bill, and I'd like you to imagine you are this therapist, and this is what Bill telling you his religion is. My religion is an ancient Northern Scandinavian religion. It is a pagan religion. It is a white Aryan religion, and it is the guiding philosophy behind lots of white supremacy groups. I consider myself a Nazi. So let's look at the way in which this particular therapist, and again, this is a real therapist. This is Dr. Jamie Atten. And so she very courageously wrote this article. And I'm so glad I found this article where she shared this experience that she had in her actual counseling session with this client. And so I want to talk with you about the way in which that she worked through and kind of, responded and handled this particular situation. Because this is a tough one. I think this would be a tough one for a lot of practitioners when this disclosure is made and you're having to very quickly not only deal with your own thoughts and feelings, but you're going to have to respond to this client and respond in a way that is most professional and most appropriate. So these were the recommendations by Dr. Jamie Atten in terms of what she did. Obviously, in that moment, she could not seek supervision and consultation, but that is one of her recommendations, as we've been talking about. She also really encourages differentiating beliefs. And so, being able to internally accept and acknowledge that this client has a very different belief system than I do is the first step that she took. She just had to acknowledge within herself that this is a belief system that is very far apart from my belief system. That was an important part of first step. She also, teach me, I'm curious. Can you tell me more about this? Taking a teach me approach and also setting some boundaries. Setting some boundaries around having the conversation, setting some boundaries around not giving off her impression of his belief system, but holding those impressions inside. That's a boundary, is not letting those impressions come out. She also took a perspective shift. So she also realized that if she had any chance of engaging with Bill and keeping him engaged, she really was going to have to shift her perspective from judging his belief system to wanting to see how his belief system is impactful in his life. She also listened for any compatible beliefs that may exist, commonalities. Are there any commonalities there? Is there any common ground that she can find with Bill in regards to his particular beliefs? She also had to continue to engage in her self-reflection. What am I feeling? What am I thinking? What is my next best step? What is this bringing up in my own faith and belief system that I may feel like I need to be very protective of or defend. And then using self-regulation skills. She talked about how she had this visceral physical reaction to his disclosure and how she immediately had to use some pretty strong but subtle self-regulation skills in that moment. So she talked about her breathing. She talked about, some grounding, like looking around the room and just making sure that she's able to self-regulate so that she doesn't completely just dysregulate. So let's look at some of her perspective, and then we're going to look at Bill's perspective. And I think you'll find this very interesting. I believe these steps and experiences open the door for positive change for both my client and myself. For me, it helped me grow as a therapist. The experience helped me continue to learn about myself as a professional helper and to learn new clinical skills. For Bill, it helped him grow as a person. Over our months of work together, Bill made significant gains in reducing his dysthymic symptoms. Further, on my last day at the facility, and by the way, this was in a correctional facility, so Bill was an inmate. Further, on my last day at the facility, Bill stopped me on my way to say thank you. He also disclosed that he had been thinking a lot about all of our conversations, and as he was getting closer to his parole, he had begun to differentiate between the beliefs that he felt were truly his and those he felt forced into adopting. He informed me that he was planning on leaving the Aryan group once he was released. So I found that very fascinating. I was so honestly surprised by Bill's response. I never would have thought that he, would turn away from this belief system that he had held. But what it made me think of is, what if this therapist, what if Jamie had a visceral reaction to Bill? What if she had just referred him out? What if she had just shut the door on this relationship and had not done any of these things that we talked about here in these bullet points? There may not have been the opportunity for him to make this transformation and to leave this faith that he had been such a part of and had believed in so strongly. But simply by the fact of her allowing him, holding the space for him to share more about his beliefs, and for her giving him this unconditional positive regard and talking with him about his beliefs, even though they were so diametrically opposed to hers and her viewpoint on humanity, it somehow was the ingredient in the recipe that allowed him, one of the ingredients that allowed him to begin to reconsider his faith. We don't want to turn people away from their faith. That's not our goal as clinicians. But in this case, probably a good thing that Bill is questioning his faith, because, his belief system is not one that is kind to all of humanity. It's not one that embraces all of humanity. And so the fact that he's considering turning away from that, I think, is something that is encouraging for his maybe own growth and development. So I thought that this authentic, real case study was a great example of how sometimes, even when a client has such diametrically opposed faith and viewpoints, that we can still try to find some way, hopefully, not always, but maybe try to find some way in which to be able to continue to work in dialogue with that client. And you may be surprised at the outcome and the result if you are able to continue to be competent and be professional and try to encourage the client to use this time and space to discuss with you their beliefs.